Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, my name is Khushbu. I'm your PMRF TA for the course Introductory Organic Chemistry 2. The course instructor for this course are Professor Nija Dashaputri and Professor Harinath Chakrapani from ISER Pune. So, this is third week. So, firstly, we will discuss about the topics they had already covered and then we will solve some questions. So, now in this week, we already studied, you guys already learned about carbonyl compounds. So, what are carbonyl compounds? So, if we will draw a carbonyl compound, the simplest carbonyl compound is our formaldehyde in case of aldehyde. So, how these carbonyl compounds will form that we will see first. Now, in case of formaldehyde, you have a carbon and an oxygen. Both of them are sp2 hybridized. So carbon used is used its sp2 hybrid orbitals that are three. Here, carbon has three sp2 hybridized orbital and oxygen also has three sp2 hybridized orbital. So carbon is using three sp2 hybrid orbitals to form bond with two hydrogens and one sigma bond with oxygen. In the same way, in the same manner, oxygen also is using one of the sp2 hybrid orbital to form sigma bond with carbon and two sp2 orbitals to occupy the lone pair. Now, carbon as well as oxygen has a p orbital that is empty. So by the sorry, having one electrons each. So these p orbitals will overlap with each other sideways to form the pi bond. So this is the structure of your carbonyl compound, how it is looking. Now, according to the molecular orbital diagram, how we will represent this carbonyl bond or C double bond O. So for that, we know that carbon has hybridization 1s2, 2s2, 2p2. So we have a 2s having filled 2 electrons and 2p having 2 electrons. Oxygen has electronic configuration 1s2, 2s2, 2p4. So 2s having 2 electrons and 2p having 4 electrons. Now oxygen being electronegative in nature. Oxygen is electronegative in nature. So being oxygen will pull its electron density towards itself. So that's why it has lower energy orbitals than that lower energy atomic orbitals than that of the carbon, which is less, which is electropositive, not like as electronegative as that of the oxygen. So when carbon and oxygen will come together to form the bond, then hybridization will take place. And during hybridization, 2s orbital and 2p orbital, 2s and two 2p orbitals overlap to form the sp2 orbitals. Three. Three for carbon, three for oxygen. Two of the sp2 orbitals of the carbon is used in forming bond with hydrogen. Two of the oxygen sp2 orbitals are used for filling lone pair of electrons, and one of them are sharing for forming the sigma and sigma star orbital. Similarly, the 2p orbitals that are available on carbon and oxygen, they also overlap sideways to form the pi and pi star molecular orbital. So this is the molecular orbital diagram. Now what information we can get from this molecular orbital diagram is that your pi orbital, filled pi orbital, is close in energy to the oxygen. So that means it has more contribution from the oxygen. So this implies that electron density will be shifted towards oxygen. How we can represent it? We can represent it as PPT is not visible. Everyone, my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, maybe you can reconnect. Okay, so based on the molecular orbital diagram, we come to know that this carbon oxygen, this electron density is more towards the oxygen and less towards the carbon. And if we will see this pi star orbital, this pi star orbital is more towards the, or has more contribution from the carbon. So if we will see the anti-bonding orbital, it has major share on the carbon. So this implies our carbonyl carbon or formaldehyde having positive charge on carbon and negative charge, partial negative charge on oxygen. So if any nucleophile will approach the to attack the carbonyl or any carbonyl compound, it will attack at the electrophilic center, that is the carbon. Is this clear? Okay, so this polarization is occurring, and the the attack of nucleophile is occurring at carbonyl carbon because of the shear or because of the partial charges that is generated after the formation of the carbonyl compound. This is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now when a reaction is taking place, so for orbital overlapping to take place, what is the there are three possible conditions. Your electrophile and nucleophile does not have much energy difference, and when they will interact with each other, so the new molecular orbitals formed have large energy gain. This is one of the condition. And other possibility is your nucleophile is very much electronegative than that of the electrophile. In that case, energy gain for the bond after the bond formation is less. So this is not to, like, very much feasible for reaction to take place. And if you have nucleophile or electrophile having much energy difference, so in this case your ionic compounds are like tendency of formation of ionic compound is more than that of the covalent compounds. So the most favorable condition for any carbonyl compound to form is this, is the first condition, or for reaction to take place is the first condition, where your electrophile and the nucleophile has comparable energy, so that they will overlap with each other, orbitals will overlap with each other and form compound. So, for a reaction to take place, electronic repulsion should be overcome so that nucleophile can reach the electrophile. And secondly, orbitals are of appropriate energy to interact so that they can overlap properly. And approach should be in the particular direction that we will see in the further slides. And for nucleophile and electrophile to attack to each other, what are the important orbitals that we have to keep in mind? For nucleophile to attack, we will consider its HOMO, that is the highest occupied molecular orbital. Nucleophile is providing electrons for to attack on the electrophile. So nucleophile has many filled orbitals. So whatever orbital is of highest energy, that is needed for the attack. And electrophile is having empty orbital. There are many empty orbitals in the case of electrophile. So whatever is the lowest that lowest unoccupied molecular orbital, that is needed for the bond formation. So for nucleophile and electrophile to react with each other, we will consider LUMO of our electrophile and HOMO of our nucleophile. Clear?
Ma'am, once again, can you please tell?
Okay. Nucleophile is providing electrons to attack on the electrophile. That means it has many orbitals that have electrons. And the highest energy orbital, if nucleophile has higher energy to attack on the electrophile, then the chances of attack will increase. So the highest occupied orbital, or we can say the highest occupied orbital that is having the highest energy, will be considered for attack. So then for nucleophile we will see HOMO, highest occupied molecular orbital, and we will ignore other lower energy orbitals that are filled. We don't consider that, or we don't, nucleophile don't need them to attack on the electrophile. Similarly, for electrophile is electron deficient. That means it has a space where electrons can be filled. So electron in this electrophile has many empty orbitals where electrons can be filled. But nucleophile will give electron to the orbital that is having the lowest energy. Then only this gap will be considerable. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is the addition reaction on the carbonyl compounds. So the first simple reaction is the formation of cyanohydrin, where this acetone we are taking and we are treating it with sodium cyanide in the presence of sulfuric acid and water. So it will form this cyanohydrin. This is simple addition of NaCN and water, acid will form HCN. So carbonyl will, addition of HCN is taking place on the carbonyl carbon, or this C double bond O bond. Now, how this reaction is taking place? Firstly, your nucleophile, that is cyanide, will attack the electrophilic center, that is carbon, in the case of carbonyl compound, and this pi bond will break. And in the second step, protonation will take place to form the cyanohydrin. So, the addition of carbonyl compounds in all the cases involve two steps. First is the nucleophilic attack on the carbonyl carbon, and second is the protonation of the anion. Now the first step is the important step, or that we can say that is the rate determining step, because in that case sigma bond is forming and pi bond is breaking. Now in case of formaldehyde, we have already seen the structure of formaldehyde, where your carbon is sp2 hybridized, oxygen is sp2 hybridized, having a filled pi orbital formed by the sharing of two p orbitals and one sigma bond. And this pi star orbital or anti-bonding pi orbital has more contribution on the carbon, and filled sigma orbital has the more contribution on the oxygen. Now how this attack will take place? So your carbonyl compound was there, and whenever nucleophile will approach, it will approach your pi star orbital, that is empty, because we see that nucleophile will give electrons from HOMO, and electrophile, that is carbonyl carbon in this case, will accept electron in LUMO. So LUMO is unoccupied molecular orbital, and in the case of carbonyl compounds, your pi star orbital is empty, that is having the lowest energy. So this pi star orbital is occupying electron, or nucleophile is giving electron to the pi star orbital of the carbon. So when nucleophile will approach the this carbonyl carbon LUMO and interaction will take place, then your new sigma bond will form. And as carbon will not form more than four bonds, so the pi bond that is formed by the overlapping of the p sidewise overlapping of the p orbitals, that will break. And as this electrons will shift towards the more electronegative oxygen, so it will acquire a negative charge, and that negative charge it will use for the like for neutralization. In the second step it will get protonated. Now when your nucleophile will approach the electrophile, your p orbital, or we can say the pi star orbital, as shown here, is not perpendicular, because your pi orbital is formed by the overlapping of the p orbital that are perpendicular. That means your pi star orbital is like having a angle. with respect to the p orbital, that is a perpendicular. So whenever your nucleophile will approach the electrophile, they will come at an angle of 107 degree. So cyanide will attack on aldehyde and ketone through an angle. Now, if after the formation of cyanohydrin, if we treat it with water in the presence of some base, so base can abstract the proton of the hydroxyl group, and then electrons will shift to oxygen, and oxygen negative will remove this cyanide by uh, using its lone pair to form the pi bond. Now this means that cyanohydrin formation is reversible. So just if we will dissolve cyanohydrin in water, it will give back us our aldehyde or ketone and the cyanide that we started with. Now this equilibrium, how we will decide that whether the cyanohydrin will exist or your aldehyde or ketone will exist. Now from the data, it is as like k equilibrium constant we are measuring for benzaldehyde and for ketone. So it was found that for benzaldehyde, the k equilibrium is greater than that of the ketone. Now why is it so? When in the case of ketone or aldehyde, your carbon is sp2 hybridized, bond angle is 120 degree, and when nucleophile is approaching after the attack, your carbon is becoming sp3 hybridized. Now the angle is 109 degree 25, 109.25, like near to that. So in this case, if we have a bulky groups on the carbonyl carbon, then after the attack there will be steric hindrance around the cyanohydrin, as is observed in the case of ketone. But in case of aldehyde, we have one of the group as hydrogen. So in case of aldehyde, hindrance, steric hindrance is less. So because there is less steric hindrance, so the K equilibrium is more in case of aldehyde and less in case of ketone. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, when your nucleophile is approaching aldehyde and ketone, it will not come perpendicular. It will come at 107 degree angle, and this approach was given by Gauss-Dunit's trajectory, or we will follow this. Now, when your nucleophile is approaching at an angle, so the pi star orbital does not have the parallel atomic orbitals. And why is it so? Like we will show p orbitals like this, and we are saying that pi star orbitals are having pi orbital is perpendicular, but pi star are not perpendicular. They are at some angle, because in case of pi star orbital, this is your pi, and in the case of pi star orbital we have one node. Because of the presence of this node, these orbitals will lean themselves away from the node. So that's why your nucleophile can easily approach from the angle of 107 degree. Is this clear why nucleophile is approaching from an angle? Because of the presence of node, your pi star orbitals or anti-atomic that anti your pi star orbital is arrange themselves away from the node, so they come at some angle, and nucleophile can easily approach from that angle. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, if we have sodium hydride, where H negative is the hydride, or the hydride is the source or the nucleophile, if we will treat acetone with sodium hydride, we will not get addition product. Instead, it will take proton from the methyl and can form enolate. Now, why is that so? Because H negative has higher electron density, and that electron density is sufficient to attack on the hydrogen, but not sufficient to attack on the more diffused 2p orbital, that is the carbonyl carbon. So because of the high electron density and smaller size, hydride ion in the case of NaH can approach hydrogen, but not is not capable to approach the diffused 2p orbital that is present in the LUMO of carbon. Now, if we want to reduce acetone or any ketone because we want alcohol, how we can do that? For that, we can use borohydride anion, that is having the same geometry as that of the methane. Now, in this case, we are showing the negative charge on the boron, but boron having like electron deficient species, so after abstraction, after forming four bonds, negative charge is coming, but that negative charge shows that boron is accepting electrons from some other atom, and we can't use these electrons to attack on some electrophile because boron can't form five bonds. It does not have space to occupy one two more electrons. It can only have eight electrons in its valence shell. So how this borane will attack or borohydride will attack at the electrophile? So in this case, if we want to attack borohydride with electrophile, so this BH bond will attack on the electrophile, and you will get a borane, and your hydrogen will shift to the electrophile. Is this clear? So whenever you have borohydride, sodium borohydride or lithium aluminum hydride, they have the same property. You will shift the electrons from inside the bond, or arrow whenever you are drawing, you should put this arrow from the center, or start this arrow from the center of the bond, not from the single atom. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So how this attack is taking place? Your BH bond is attacking at the carbonyl carbon, and then O negative will generate. Now, um, or we can say that attack is taking place through hydrogen atom, so we can show arrow by crossing the hydrogen also. This is also a correct way to represent it. Now after O negative will generate, again boron that is formed is electron deficient, so O negative can attack at this borane to form again this intermediate. And once, like this species is reactive until all the four hydrogens of the attached to the borane or boron will shift towards the carbonyl carbon or react towards the carbonyl carbon. So when all the four hydrogens are replaced by oxygen boron bond, then it will undergo further protonation. Clear? The same mechanism you can see in hydroboration oxidation also. Now we have already known about, you should know about two terms, enantiomers and diastereomers. So enantiomers are those stereoisomers that are mirror image of each other, and diastereomers are those compounds that are not mirror image of one another. Now examples we will see in the further slides. Now the other two terms that you should be aware of, whenever we are making diastereomers in the compound, that means those compounds that are not mirror image of each other, so two terms will come. One is the stereospecific reaction, and another is the stereoselective reaction. Stereospecific reactions are those reactions where you will get only one product as the product, other possibility is not there, because in this case your um, starting material will decide or determines the stereochemistry of the product, and there is no choice that from other side attack will take place, so you will get only one product here. But in case of stereoselective reaction, you can get both the products, but one is major and one is minor. So selectivity is there, but that selectivity is major for one and minor for other one. Now let us discuss about the term prochirality. Chirality we all know, that if a carbon having all four different substituents attached to it, we will call it that carbon as chiral carbon and the molecule as chiral molecule. So if we have a carbonyl compound that is prochiral, prochiral means after the attack of the nucleophile, whatever the species that is generated is chiral, because we are generating a new stereo center at that point. So those compounds that are not chiral initially, but after the attack of nucleophile, they become chiral. We will call it as prochiral compounds. Similarly, in this case also, this carbon is not chiral, but after the attack of nucleophile, your methyl iodide, this new stereogenic center is generated center. So this is becoming chiral. So this center we will call it as prochiral center. Okay, so any trigonal carbon that are not stereogenic, or we can say chiral, but can be made chiral, we called them as prochiral carbons or prochiral centers. The first example that we saw is the formation of cyanohydrin. In this case, your trigonal carbon is not chiral, but after the attack of cyanide, cyanohydrin that is forming is chiral in nature. So this center we will call it as prochiral center. But in case of acetone, because these two groups are same, now after attack of cyanide also we will not get any stereogenic center. So this carbon we can't say as prochiral. Difference you get? Any doubt in this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
So when your phenyl lithium will attack, or these are the examples. Now, when your carbonyl carbon having two faces, one is re phase and other is psi phase. So how we will determine which phase is re and which phase is psi? So let us suppose this carbonyl carbon is in the plane and this phenyl is approaching away from the screen. This is the plane. For me, this phenyl is towards me and this hydrogen is away from me. So if you are seeing on screen, this hydrogen is towards you and phenyl is away from you. So it has two faces. If we will see from this side and if we will see from other side. Now from this example, if we will like priority give the priority, so carbonyl or oxygen we will give priority 1, phenyl we will give priority 2, and hydrogen we will give priority 3, RS nomenclature. So now if we will see from this side, so for me, oxygen is above, phenyl is towards me, hydrogen is that side. So this is anti-clockwise rotation. So I will call that this phase, if I am seeing from this side, is psi phase. Imagination should be there. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
And similarly, if I'm seeing from this side, now this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. So this is clockwise rotation. So if rotation is clockwise, then that is rephase. If this rotation is anti-clockwise, that is psi phase. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, if your this is sorry, sodium borohydride will attack on the carbonyl center. So in this case, you are getting a mixture. This curly arrows we will use when we don't know about the fixed stereochemistry, whether OH is above or H is below. So the fixed stereo we don't know. So, and whenever in your molecule there is already a chiral center is present, so whenever the nucleophile will approach the carbonyl center, one more chiral center we are generating, and those compounds will be diastereomers of each other, because one stereo center is already fixed and other can have two possibilities. So those compounds will have diastereotopic faces. This point is clear?
Ma'am, once again, can you please tell?
Yeah. when in a molecule or when in a carbonyl compound there is already this chiral center is present, and you are generating a one more chiral center by the attack of nucleophile, then the compound that you are getting, this compound is diastereomers. Like if OH is above and H is below, and other possibilities, OH is down and H is above, so those two compounds are diastereomers of each other.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now, addition to the carbonyl groups can be diastereoselective even without the rings. If we have this carbonyl compound having a chiral center adjacent to the carbonyl center, in this case, here is the alpha carbon that is chiral. Now, when any nucleophile, lithium aluminum hydride or ethyl grignard will attack, it can attack from above also, it can attack from below also, but some preferences there. So, you will get two compounds that are diastereomers or having diastereomeric relation. You are getting in 3 is to 1. One is major, one is minor. And in the second case also, you will get anti and syn compound in the ratio of 1 is to 3. Now this preference, how we will decide, like which one is major, that we will decide by using Felkin Ahan model. And this model we will apply if we have at alpha carbon chiral center with respect to carbonyl. So how we will use this, or what are the different conformations we can draw for these kind of carbonyl compounds? So firstly, you have to draw a circle for making it in the Newman projection or for drawing it in the Newman projection. Then draw your carbonyl and hydrogen. Now you have three groups that are attached to the alpha carbon: phenyl, methyl, and hydrogen. Try to place the bulky group at perpendicular position with respect to the carbonyl group, and then your other groups, methyl is above, hydrogen is below. Okay, whatever is above you can keep that closer to the oxygen, whatever is below keep that close away from the oxygen. Is this clear? Now, if we want to rotate the bond, this is your carbon having the carbonyl center. This is the carbon having all the three groups. Now, rotation about this bond is possible. So, if your phenyl is there perpendicular to the carbonyl, we can rotate this bond, right? So, there different possibilities are there when your hydrogen is in like perpendicular to the carbonyl, or your methyl is perpendicular to the carbonyl, or we can draw otherwise also. Now, among all the conformations that are possible, the boxed one are the stable one, where your the bulkiest group is perpendicular to the carbonyl center. Now, in this case, when nucleophile will approach, so nucleophile will approach on the basis of these two conformations only, where your bulkiest group is perpendicular. So, the lowest energy conformation of a carbonyl compound is the one where your largest group is perpendicular to the carbonyl center. Largest group should be perpendicular to the carbonyl group. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, let us see what are the possibilities for nucleophile to attack the carbonyl center. Now, when nucleophile will approach, it can approach from the side of hydrogen, it can approach from the side of phenyl, or on the other face also it can approach from the phenyl or from the side of methyl. So among the four attacks that are possible, the three shown in brown are hindered attack. One is hindered by phenyl, one is hindered by methyl, and one is hindered by other phenyl. But when your nucleophile is approaching to the this carbonyl center near to the hydrogen, because hydrogen is smallest in size, it will not like hinder the attack of the nucleophile on the carbonyl center. So we can say this is the unhindered approach of the nucleophile to attack on the carbonyl center. And whenever your nucleophile attack at the carbonyl center, it will attack at the 107 degree from the carbon oxygen double bond. So after the attack of nucleophile, you will get this conformation. Now,
Ma'am,
yeah,
ma'am, isn't the first way of approaching to the carbonyl carbon and the last one, to the left one and the rightmost one, aren't they little same?
here we are showing methyl near to the nucleophile, right? If you rotate this first structure, so when we will rotate, so this phenyl will come 180 degree, 180 degree rotation we will give. Methyl will come down, hydrogen will go up, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So now nucleophile is facing methyl group, that is bulky than hydrogen. So this approach is also not favorable.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So now this is the conformation after the attack of nucleophile. So if we are seeing from this bond, so your pH and nucleophile. So if we are keeping pH and nucleophile in the plane, then your OH and methyl are towards your side. From the side you are visualizing the model. So this implies this OH and methyl is towards you or above the plane, beta. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So one more example, that is if lithium aluminum hydride will approach, it will also approach from the hydrogen phase. Now if we want to like draw it, if we are seeing from this side, so this is the phenyl group, this is phenyl, and here is our hydrogen, if we will say. So we will see that if we are seeing from this side, our methyl is above and hydroxyl is above and ethyl is below. Now for converting this to this, we can rotate about this bond. So if we will rotate, if we want ethyl in plane, so ethyl will go in plane, hydrogen will go above, hydroxy will go down. So you will get this one. Clear? Any doubt in forming or giving this planar notation?
Yes, ma'am.
Clear, or any doubt is there?
No, ma'am. Doubt is there.
Okay, I will like explain again. Whenever you have this Newman projection and we are seeing from this side, we are keeping this phenyl in the left side, right? And then make a linear chain. So this phenyl and this hydrogen is opposite. So place it the same way. Now, after placing this, if you are seeing from this side, your OH is above, methyl is above. Methyl is attached to the same carbon where your phenyl is there. So, attach your methyl above to the same carbon where we draw the phenyl. Okay? Then your OH is also at the same side, but it is attached to the carbon where your hydrogen is there. So, draw this OH above and this ethyl is below. So this is the conformation. Now we want ethyl in plane, because whenever we draw the planar conformation, we want most of the carbon to be the part of the linear chain. So ethyl is bulky group here. So we will make this ethyl come to the plane. So when we will rotate it anti-clockwise, so ethyl will take the place of hydrogen, hydrogen will take the place of hydroxyl group, and hydroxyl group will take the place of ethyl. So what you will get? This center we are not changing, so it will remain same. Ethyl will come in plane, hydrogen will go above, and oxygen or hydroxyl group will go below.
Yes, ma'am.
Clear?
Understood.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what is the effect of electronegative atoms in this case? So, if we have this isoleucine, now let us discuss about these transformation. If you have amine and you are treating it with benzyl bromide, so what will happen? Amine nitrogen will attack on the benzyl carbon. This is your benzyl bromide, and we have amine. So nitrogen will attack at this carbon and this bromide will leave. Again, one more electron is there. So it can attack on the other molecule also. So you will get this protected amine. Why we are protecting it? We don't want it to react further with any species that we want to use. Then LAH, what it will do? It will reduce the acid to aldehyde, sorry, alcohol. So after getting alcohol at that center, what you will get? Sorry, after reduction, it will form alcohol. Then we are oxidizing that alcohol using some oxidizing agent. Then you will get the aldehyde. Okay, these transformations are clear.
Ma'am, the first transformation is. Can you please again explain the first transformation only?
Okay. This benzyl bromide is the protecting group that we will use to protect alcohols or amines. Here, your free amine is there. So, nitrogen is having less electronegativity. So, it has the highest tendency to react with the benzyl bromide first. So, benzyl bromide is this. This is the living group that is attached to the carbon or benzylic carbon. Nitrogen having lone pair of electrons or having the nucleophilic tendency, it will attack at this center and your leaving group will leave. So SN2 attack will take place and you will get R, N, H, B, N. We will write this as BN. This is BN, BR. So again, one more attack can take place because hydrogen is there. So again, after attack, it can form RnBN2. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now we have aldehyde, or if we are treating it with this lithiated enolate, so what it can do? Electrons will fall here. It can attack on aldehyde, and you will get alcohol. Now again, we will on the alpha position of your aldehyde, we have a chiral center. So we will use Falkin-Hahn model to predict which one is the major product, because you are getting a 96 is to 4 diastereoselectivity. That means one product only we are getting as major and only trace amount of other product is forming. So if we want to draw, we will draw a carbonyl carbon, hydrogen. Now, your bulky group is NBN2, and this other like benzyl phenyl rings are bulky than your alkyl chain. So we will keep your bulky group in the like perpendicular to the carbonyl center. If we will keep it in the perpendicular to that, so this R group will we will keep close to the carbonyl and hydrogen away from it. Just wait. Now, when your nucleophile will approach, so the nucleophile will approach from the side of hydrogen. Okay, so nucleophile is this negative will come here and this carbon will attack at the carbonyl center. So this will form after the attack. Okay, now how we will draw this? From this side we are seeing the molecule. So if we are seeing this, so this is our NBN2, and so this is NBN2, and here is your, here they missed the hydroxyl group. No, this is fine. So now this is carbon having NBN2, and from upside we are seeing, so this is the group, I'm writing it as R, and below is your hydrogen. On the other carbon, that is the next carbon, you have CH2 COMe. I drawn the right wrong way. Okay, so we have this carbon and this carbon. On this carbon, we have NBN2. Here we have CH2 CO2 Me, and this OH is above, and here we have alkyl group as above and hydrogen as below. Now for keeping the alkyl part or most of the carbon in the plane, we will bring it here. Nitrogen will go below, hydrogen will go above, so you will get this structure. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now whenever you have a electron with like leaving group next to the carbonyl center that is perpendicular to it, so in that case, like in here in the case of this benzoyl chloride, the pi star of the carbonyl or carbon oxygen bond and the sigma star of this CCl bond are parallel to each other, and they can overlap with each other, or after overlapping they form a new lower energy molecular orbital, that is the pi star and sigma star orbital, or the molecular orbital that is formed by the combination of pi star and the sigma star orbital, that is having even lower energy than the pi star orbital of the carbonyl bond. So because of the presence of this or the formation of this LUMO, the reactivity of these compounds for the nucleophilic addition will further increase. So whenever you have a carbonyl compound having electron withdrawing group adjacent to it that is perpendicular to that carbonyl, then because of the formation of a lower energy molecular orbital formed by the overlapping of pi star and sigma star orbital, the attack or the feasibility of the attack of the nucleophile at the carbonyl center will increase. Okay. Now this is the Felgenhagen model how we will use. So we will keep first carbonyl and that bulkiest group perpendicular to that, and then from the side of the smaller group we will attack the nucleophile. Now whenever we have chelation effect, that can reverse the stereoselectivity. How is that so? Like in this case, you have sulfur next to the or at the alpha carbon of the carbonyl carbon, and you are treating it with some hydride source. So it will reduce this carbonyl group and you will get alcohol. Now, like according to Felkin-Ahan model, we should keep the bulky group S-methyl group in the perpendicular to the carbonyl center, and then your hydride will attack from the side of hydrogen, that is the least bulky group. So you will get this like product, and this will be the product. But when we are treating it with zinc borohydride, now zinc is having electrons, or zinc can coordinate with lone pair, or zinc can coordinate with sulfur as well as oxygen. So zinc can chelate sulfur and carbonyl group, and chelation is the coordination of two heteroatoms carrying lone pair to the same metal atom, and now the conformation of the starting material will change. So now the attack will not take place as from the Falkenhayn model, but by the like chelation will control the attack of the nucleophile. How it will control? So you have this sulfur that you kept it perpendicular, but now you will not keep it perpendicular. The next bulky group you will keep perpendicular to the carbonyl. The next bulky group is phenyl. So we will keep phenyl perpendicular to the carbonyl, and methyl, or this sulfide and oxygen close to each other, so that they can chelate with this metal, and now the hydride will attack from the uh, this hydrogen side, and you will get this product as the major product. So if we will draw it, phenyl we will draw this way, hydrogen will come this side, this this s methyl group is above, and your OH is also above. So if we will rotate it, you will get this compound. So whenever you have metals like lithium, magnesium, zinc, copper, titanium, cerium, manganese, they can chelate with the carbonyl carbon and the adjacent electron, or having atom lone pair of electrons. But if you have sodium or potassium, they will not chelate. So if you are treating this compound with sodium borohydride, so you will get 73% of the chelated compound, sorry, Felkina compound, and 27% of other one. And if you are using dimethyl magnesium, then you will get maximum amount of the chelated compound or product that is formed after chelation. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's move on to the questions. So the first question is, what is the correct order of equilibrium enol content of the following compounds? Now, if we have a carbonyl compound, or in the presence of acid or base, base will take the alpha proton, this will shift here, and this will form O negative, and in this will enolate will form first, and after enolate formation, protonation will take place. So you will get a enol, en and all. So we will call it as enol. So now you have to tell in which of these cases, or what is the, in which case equilibrium will favor the enol form, and in which case it will not favor. That order you have to tell. So for that, first you have to see hyperconjugation, resonance, then hydrogen bonding is there or not, and if aromatic compound or aromatic ring is attached sometimes, so that aromaticity you also have to check, but this factor will not applicable here, so you have to check these three factors. So let us draw first enolate forms of all the compounds. So here enol form is this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
In the second case, now in this case hydrogen bonding is possible, you have
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Now in the third case, this is the enol form. And in the last case, so except one, in all the cases, this hydrogen bonding is possible, and resonance is also possible, that these electrons can move here. These electrons can move here, right? So resonance and hydrogen bonding is common for all the cases. So these factors can't decide which one is the, like, which will contribute most to the enol form, and which will contribute least. So now the remaining factor is hyperconjugation. So this will decide hyperconjugation. How we will find? Based on the alpha protons. So in the first case, how many alpha protons are there?
Hello. 3.
3 or 6? This is also alpha position, this is also alpha position, right? 3 hydrogens from here, CH3, and 3 from here. The total number of alpha hydrogens are
6.
6. So here 6 alpha hydrogens are there. Then in the second case, this is alpha, this is alpha. So here we have 5 alpha hydrogen.
5 alpha. Yes, ma'am.
Then in this case, this is also alpha hydrogen.
8.
Okay. Here we have 8 alpha hydrogens. In the last case, 5 alpha hydrogen. Right? This will not contribute, right? This is like it will, aldehyde will, that it will form this cation after the loss of electron. That is not the enol form. Alpha means carbonyl. Next to that carbon, you should have some hydrogen. This hydrogen is directly attached to the carbon of the carbonyl carbon. This is not alpha hydrogen. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now based on this, which one is the most contributing most to the enol content?
Ma'am, C.
C. After that,
A.
not A. In A case, we have just alpha hydrogen. So only the hyperconjugation is controlling the enol form there. Resonance is not there, hydrogen bonding is not there. So this will contribute least.
D.
D.
D,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
A, then
B.
B, and then A.
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 Okay. So the correct option is option D. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, just by seeing the hyperconjugation number, we did not decide for B to be at second place. So, ma'am, what reason you gave? Can you please once again give that?
See, if we are comparing B and D, both of them have 5 alpha hydrogens, right? So hyperconjugation is not deciding factor here. Then resonance is there in both the cases. But if we are considering this ester is using its electron for the other conjugation also, right? But in the case of aldehyde, no other conjugation is possible. So electron density at this center is more than that of this one. So whenever you are doing conjugation, so in this case, the conjugation, if we are considering 50%, in this case conjugation is 100%. So on the basis of that we are deciding.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Clear?
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Okay. So the factors that affect ketone enol equilibrium is the substitution. That means how many alpha uh, protons are there. Then conjugation. Then hydrogen bonding. Other factor is aromaticity is also there, but that is not applicable here, so I didn't mention. Then for which of the following equilibrium K equilibrium is less than 1? So you have carbonyl compounds and you are adding water to form acetal or ketal. Now you have to tell in which of these cases K equilibrium is less than 1. Means which of these will favor the formation of starting material rather than product. So in which case starting material equilibrium will favor starting material rather than product. So whenever nucleophile will attack the electrophile, you will see the electrophilicity of the carbonyl center. This is the hint. Now tell me which one is the correct option.
Option A.
Option A. You have to see if your carbonyl carbon is electrophilic, that means water can easily attack. If water is easily attacking, that means the reaction will proceed towards product. So you have to see which carbonyl carbon is least electrophilic.
Then option C.
Option
Yes, ma'am. C.
correct. So see, when your carbonyl carbon or the group attached to the carbonyl carbon is electron withdrawing in nature, so they will pull the electron density, and the positive charge on the carbonyl carbon will increase. So we can say that delta positive will increase or electrophilicity will increase. So water can easily attack and the reaction will move forward. So K equilibrium will be more than 1. But if you have electron donating group, then the positive charge will decrease, or the feasibility of water to attack at the carbonyl center will decrease. Okay, so the option in which electron donating group is there is option C, that will make carbonyl center less electrophilic for the attack of water. In other cases, your CF3 is electron withdrawing, CCl3 is also electron withdrawing. In case of this aldehyde, fluorine is electron withdrawing. So in these cases, attack of water is more feasible than that of the option C or acetone. Clear?
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Okay. Third question. Which of the following observation does not establish the existence of keto-enol tautomerism in acetone? You have acetone and you are forming the enol form. Now for this equilibrium, first is when treated with DCl in D2O, whether it will favor the enol form or not. Then second is D2O in the presence of NaOD, whether this will favor the keto like enol form. Then third is dilute H2SO4 in the presence of substituted water or isotopic water. Then this will form, whether this will decide that keto, or this is the proof that ketoenol tautomerism is happening or not. Now in the first condition, what will happen if we have acetone and we are treating it with DCl in the presence of D2O? HCl is acidic or basic?
Acidic.
Acidic. So similarly, DCl is also acidic. So your D positive is there, oxygen having lone pair, so it will protonate it, or in this case we can say deuterate it. So you will get this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Then Cl negative is there, it will take the alpha proton to neutralize the positive charge on oxygen. So you will get this enol form. And as we are adding D2O, or like it is same as of water, so this process is reversible. So this will take deuterium from D2O. So now it will form here deuterium, and this process will not stop here. It will form, all the alpha protons will be replaced by deuterium. So the first option, when treated with DCl in D2O, hexadeuterated acetone is recovered. This is true. Is this clear how this is true?
Yes, ma'am.
Now in this process, like when this process is happening, your keto is converted to enol form, right? So we can consider it as the proof for keto-enol tautomerism, because the mechanism is the same. Now tell me what happens in the presence of base, deuterated base. Now you have acetone and you are treating it with NaOD. Consider in mind NaOH and then write the mechanism as of for NaOD. So what is the first step?
Ma'am, it will be ONA and then OD.
It is Na positive, OD negative. Like NaOH, OH negative, Na positive.
Yes, ma'am.
Huh. So this is base. So what it will abstract? Proton, and that is at the alpha center. So firstly, this enolate will generate, and then it will abstract deuterium from water. So this will form this deuterated eno. Okay, so this is also a proof of formation of, and again in the presence of D2O, this process will also be reversible. So you will get the same product as for the acid catalyzed tautomerization. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now the third option is when we are treating oxygen or acetone with dilute H2SO4 in the presence of H2O18. So acid, in the presence of acid, what first step, what is the first step? Your protonation will take place. Now for this, like water cannot abstract the alpha proton. Water can act like directly, it can attack to neutralize the positive charge. So then it will form OH, and now this is oxygen 18 and H2, or after neutralization this will form OH18 and OH. Now again protonation will take place and this lone pair will fall and this water will leave. So you will get this oxygen 18 substituted acetone. So in the third case, water can directly attack at the protonated oxygen or protonated carbonyl carbon. This will not specify that keto-enol tautomerism is taking place. Clear?
No, ma'am.
Yes.
Please again repeat third option.
Okay. They are telling, like if you are treating acetone with acid in the presence of isotopic water. Okay. So whether keto-enol tautomerism will take place to form this acetone. Now, what is the mechanism of the reaction of this attack? So after protonation, your acetone will be like, after abstracting proton, this species will form. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, water can easily attack at the electrophilic center to neutralize the positive charge on the oxygen. So what you will get? I'm writing direct. This ketal will form, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Then after this protonation, second protonation at the OH that is originally attached to the carbon, and then lone pair will fall and this water will go. This oxygen 18 can come. This isotopic acetone can form.
Yes, ma'am.
In this case, keto-enol tautomerism is not taking place. This is just by protonation and then direct attack. So this is not considered as the proof for keto-enol tautomerism, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So they are asking about the same thing, that which one is not considered as the proof for the existence of keto-enol tautomerism in acetone. So the correct option is option 3. Clear? Okay. Now predict the plausible product in the following hydride addition reaction to 2-butanol. You have lithium aluminium hydride and then proton source. So what is the first step? Whether you can apply Falkin-Ahan model in this? To predict which one is major product, which one is minor? At least say yes or no. Falkin-Ahan model can be applied?
Not sure, ma'am.
No. See, we will apply Falkin-Ahan model when at the alpha center already that chiral center is present. Now in this case, at alpha position, two hydrogens are there. That means this center is not chiral, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Falkin-Ahan will not be applicable. Is this clear?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. This you should keep in mind. Okay, don't forget. Now, lithium aluminum hydride is there. That means it is a hydride source. And how that hydride will attack? Through the aluminium hydrogen bond. So, first, hydride will attack at the carbonyl center. Oxide will form. So, it will form O negative and H. Then it will take proton and you will get alcohol. Now there are two possibilities. Hydride, this alcohol is planar. So hydride can attack from above face also, or hydride can attack from back face also, right? So if
Yes, ma'am.
hydride will attack from back face, OH will go beta. And if hydride is attacking from above face, your hydroxyl group will go alpha. Alpha and beta is everyone is aware of, right? If you have any group above the plane, we called it as beta. And if any group is below the plane, we will call it as alpha.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. So when hydride is coming from above, your hydroxy will go alpha or below the plane. Clear?
Ma'am, can you please repeat?
Okay. This carbonyl carbon is planar. You have two substituents, one is above, one is below. Now, hydride can attack on this carbonyl center from above the plane also and from the below the plane also. If one thing is planar, attack can take place from above also and from below also. So if your hydride is
Yes.
coming above, then this OH will go down, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And if hydride is coming from below, OH will go above. So
Yes,
the
ma'am.
two possibilities are this one. And they are asking about plausible products. So the correct option is option C. That both products are possible and they are racemic mixture in enantiomers of each other. So this is racemic mixture of S and R butanol. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then the next question is, in the given reaction, now in this case, can we apply Falkin-Hahn model?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, because your alpha carbon is chiral.
Chiral center.
So let's draw. We have this carbonyl. Here we have hydrogen. Now phenyl. We will keep perpendicular because that is the bulky group. Then hydrogen is above, methyl is below. Correct? Any doubt in this Newman projection? Now, from where methyl will attack? From the side of methyl or from the side of
Hydrogen side.
hydrogen side. So methyl will attack from this side and this will go. So the projection we will get is, here we will get OH, here we will get methyl, here we will get H, and this is pH, H and CH3. So let's draw from this side. So this is pH. Here we have methyl, that is below, and then on the next carbon we have OH above, methyl this side, and hydrogen below. Right? Now
Yes, ma'am.
we have to draw the Fisher projection. So for Fisher projection, let me draw this as methyl. So this OH is above, this is your phenyl, this is your methyl, this is OH, and this is methyl. So if we will draw Fisher projection, so this is phenyl, methyl, H, this is methyl, this is OH, and this is H. Now they want OH at this position, so we can rotate. OH will go here, this will go here, and this will come this side. So you will get H, methyl, methyl, H, and OH. So correct option is
Option A.
option A. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then the next question is, predict the major product in the following. This we already discussed. When we have aldehyde, you are treating it with methyl lithium in the presence of water. So you draw the Felkinahan model and tell me which one is the correct product. Which one is correct option? See, this is same as of this. Your phenyl will be perpendicular, methyl is close to the oxygen, and hydride is this side, right? So when your nucleophile will approach and OH will form, so both methyl and OH will come at the same side. Now they are showing phenyl on the left and nucleophile on the right. In your question, this phenyl they are showing on the left and methyl on the right. So what you will get, your OH and CH3 will be below. Correct option is option B. This we already discussed in the slides, so I'm not repeating it. Okay, just you have to draw the Kram's-Mod this Falkenhayn model, and then attack the nucleophile from the hydrogen side, and then redo the structure. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then the next question is, now the similar kind of question we already discussed, when your enolate will attack the carbonyl center. So let's draw this. You have this carbonyl, and here in this case we have methyl. Now the bulky group is, here three groups are there: O silicon group, your methyl, and hydrogen. So which one is bulky? This O silicon R.
O silicon.
I'm writing it as R. Then we will like after formation of product we can write. So this is R. Now which one is above? Your hydrogen is above and methyl is below. So when this will attack, so it will attack from the side of hydrogen. So you will get and then hydrogen, methyl, and your R group. Right? So if you will draw in this way, so this OH is above, methyl is below, and the next center, your hydrogen is above and methyl is below. Here hydrogen is above and methyl is below. Right? So now if we will rotate the bond to keep this methyl group in the plane, to keep carbon in the plane, then what you will get? So here we have methyl and this is OSiPH2 dot butyl. Hydrogen I'm not showing. Now in the second step they are giving you TBAF. So TBAF is used for deprotection of silyl group. So this fluoride will attack the silicon and oxygen silicon bond will break in such a way that you will get the negative charge at the oxygen center. And after protonation or after workup, it will form this OH. So this is the product you will get. This is option A.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, next is the following product, or the major product formed in the following reaction is. Now, instead of SME, here you have given O-methoxy and you are treating it with zinc bromide. Now, Felke-Rahan model is applicable, but chelation is there. So, your zinc will coordinate with the oxygen. In this case, you have oxygen and carbonyl oxygen, and that hydride will attack from the side of hydrogen, and then you will get this trans addition product. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in this case, the correct option is option A. When you will draw the chelation model, you will get. This is similar to this. Okay. How many tautomers can be drawn for the following ketone? Now, tautomers you will find out on the basis of alpha hydrogens. So, how many alpha hydrogens are there? This is the carbonyl, this is alpha center, this is alpha center. Here is
Ma'am, 2.
one hydrogen, here is other hydrogen. So, two alpha hydrogens are there. This implies two tautomers are.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Which of the following has greater enol content then the corresponding keto counterpart. Again, you have to see alpha protons. So here, how many are there?
3.
3 alpha hydrogens. In this case,
2.
2 alpha hydrogens. Here,
8.
8 alpha hydrogens. In this case,
2.
2.
alpha hydrogens. So which one has highest enol content? This one.
Option B.
B.
C. C.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all for today. Thank you. You can leave now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.